Okay, good morning. We are continuing in chapter 1, or as we say, Siman 1, the first letter that we're here in the letters of the Alter Rebbe. And we're discussing right now the spiritual and practical structure of the Jew, of the person. And we mentioned that you have your head, which is your power to think, and your meditation powers. You have your arms that represent your love and fear. The right arm is love and the left arm is fear. And we spoke about different parts of the body, but the key we're discussing here is what we call the loins, the area just above the hips, masnayim. And what is that? That represents faith. In other words, what supports that your head, when you think, should think in the right form and fashion, that your love and your fear should be a healthy love and fear? It's all of faith. Just to explain, a lot of times people think that faith is something the weak need faith. You know, the weak people, they have to rely on faith. The people who understand, the deep thinkers, they have the knowledge. They don't have to rely on faith. They have the knowledge. The truth is, faith is the most powerful thing we have. Good morning. Faith represents or is like seeing something.
It goes.
What does it mean to have faith? Faith is something more powerful than logic. In other words, faith means that my soul perceives and sees it. We discussed in the different Maimarim, different Hasidic discourses, that there are two general ways how a Jew naturally has faith. We know that Jewish people are called Ma'aminim b'nei Ma'aminim. Believers, the children of believers. Where does this come from? So it says there's two ways that we have faith. One way is what's called mazlayu chazi. Your soul sees, or your mazel above sees. In other words, your soul has different parts to it. There's a part of your soul that comes into your body and it functions within your body. And there's a part of your soul that remains above and functions above. That part of the soul which is above is called your mazel. It's your special soul above that is actually, it's like one of the ways that I picture it is like I never was there, but I always imagine the stock exchange. You have hundreds of people calling, hey, trying to get your attention. So you have all these souls above who are representing you in the heavenly spheres, and they're representing you, and they're trying to, and on your birthday, of course, Mazal Gover, your mazel is strong, it gets God's attention. So birthdays are good times to get what you need. But there's a power of your soul that's above. That soul sees godliness. It sees it. And therefore, who are you? You are a Jewish person that a part of your soul sees godliness. So even if logic defies your belief, in other words, let's say someone will explain to you why it can't be that God created the world, or it can't be there's a God, or things happen in the world that are painful, makes you question. But if you saw godliness, you can't question it. For an example, if I told somebody I saw a person jump from the floor outside the building up 30 feet to the second floor onto the balcony, you would say, that's a fantasy. If I saw it, as much as you tell me it's impossible, I saw it. I was standing outside. The guy did it. Give me any story, especially he had special shoes, he had a rope. I don't know. I saw him do it. So no matter what logic you come, you can't shake the fact. If I heard it, if someone told me it happened, and then someone explains to me why it's impossible, I'll say, okay, it's impossible. But if I saw it myself, it doesn't matter your explanations. I saw it. Say what you want. That's what. That we're talking about a healthy person. If that's the issue, then you're in bigger troubles. That's the least of your problems. They say, they always have a joke. They say, when you pray and you talk to God, you're a holy person. If God talks to you, run to the counselor. Run to the counselor, the therapist, quickly. Yeah.
But Hashem talked to Moshe.
Yeah. That was a different world.
Excusez-moi.
Which
Yeah.
Moshe we talking?
But we have everybody a little part of Moshe
Yeah,
inside of us.
that's right. And by the way,
Slicha?
so you have to see how God talks to you. Does God talk to you through a voice in your ear? Does he talk to you by showing you events that happen, and he instructs you and guides you by seeing things, by studying? God talks to all of us, but usually not whispering into our ear. No. But again, we don't want to, God forbid, make light of this this concept what took place back in the day when people saw godliness. Okay. So, in other words, faith is a very, very strong thing. It's the idea of I could see something and I see it. Then we have a deeper level of faith that's even called, not that I see it, but it's part of me. This is my identity. Okay, it's another deeper level. We're talking here, even the lower level, faith is very strong. So faith is the strongest thing we have. The problem with faith is, as we'll see, not always does faith translate into action. We know the famous story about a thief breaking into someone's house. He heard the people are out of town. Now he's upstairs going through the jewelry. He hears a creak downstairs. He goes, oh God, please, let it not be the owners. Oh God, please. What happened to God said don't steal? I have faith, but not that much. I have faith enough to pray to God. Meaning faith is very powerful, but sometimes the faith doesn't affect us. So how do we keep that faith strong? We have what's called chagra ba'oz masnaha. Which says that like in the Iggeres Chayil, that we put a support for the loins. Meaning the faith's job, the masnayim, the loins job of the body. Faith's job is to keep your head strong, keep your arms strong, keep your body strong. What keeps your loins strong? I know what the loins do. They keep my body strong. Well, what keeps my loins strong? That is the eyes. What do we say it was? The study of Torah. Which part of Torah in particular? The oral Torah. The Torah is divided in two parts, the oral Torah and the written Torah. And we said the oral Torah in particular was what we're talking about. That's what we're up to in the Tanya now. Here's what we're up to. We're now on page 204, and we're about 7-8 lines at the top, right? The new paragraph. But me who hanoisen koyach v'eiz, who and what is giving the strength and the power to our hips, to our loins. Lahamid, to hold up property. Ulakayim, and to support. Harosh, meaning my mind, my hisbodinus, my meditations, they should be healthy. How do I ensure that my meditations and my thinking is going to be healthy? Healthy meaning spiritually. And v'hazroyus, and to support the arms. What's the arms? We said the right arm is love of God and left arm is fear of God. How do I make sure that my loins are strong to support my thinking and my conduct, my behavior? The answer is it is the involvement and the study of the oral law. The oral law is the key. So if a person wants to be strong spiritually, you can't just say, well, I'm a spiritual person, I have faith. You have to make sure your faith is good, because some people have faith in other things which are very unhealthy. We look around the world today, people have the most random, unhealthy, and really dangerous sort of faiths. How do you make sure your faith is authentic? It has to be constantly supported and fed. One of the ways that we do that, the primary way, is the study of the oral law. What's the oral law? Primarily, like Maimonides, the Rambam. This is one of the reasons possibly why the Rebbe encouraged so much a study of Rambam, because the Rambam is the best example of basic laws of Torah. What does God want us to do? How to put on tefillin, how to light Shabbos candles, how to keep Shabbos, how to eat kosher, how to make kiddush, how to do the mitzvah of having guests, how to mitzvah of comforting the mourner. All the laws, how and what to do them, are brought down in the code of Jewish law and the halachas, in the oral law.
Would you say that before that it was the Talmud and the Mishnah?
It was the Talmud and the Mishnah before that. Yes, they didn't always have, exactly. They didn't always have the book, the code, or the law, as we say, started the first time, probably the earliest is the year 9 or 10, 900 or 1000, 9th or 10th century, when we just started having laws functioned. Then we had, of course, the great authorities, the 3 or 4 main pillars of Jewish law, which is the Rosh, the Rif, the Rambam. You had the Iggeres of Cairo eventually. You had certain people that came and structured the halacha. But that all started after the 9th century. The earliest ones are some of the, not the Ge'enim, they were called the, it's the Ge'enim. Some of the Ge'enim were the first earliest ones to put down halacha. The Ge'enim, they were probably 9th century, around there, somewhere thereabouts. So, but the Jewish law, why is the law so critical versus Chumash? Why didn't I say, we have to learn Chumash. We have to learn oral law. We have to learn Chassidus. We have to learn a lot of things. But why does the oral law stand out as such an important part of keeping your faith strong? And the Alter Rebbe is going to give us an insight which is fascinating to understand the way God functions and the way what the Torah is and how we can tap into the deepest essence of Torah. Here it is, beautiful insight here. We're in about 3 or 4 lines in the new paragraph here. Shehi bechinas gilui ratzon ha'elyon. What is the oral law? That is the revelation of God's will. What does this mean? The revelation of God's will. You see, the written law doesn't really tell you what God wants. We're going to see in a moment, we want to tap into what does God want, much more than how does God think, or what does God, and we're going to get into this very beautiful idea here. But first step is, why is the oral law more God's will revealed than the written law? And the answer is very simple. Because the written law doesn't tell you what God wants. It tells you words. You shall put them as frontlets between your eyes and bind them as a sign upon your arm. Okay, what's frontlets? No, what's a sign? Maybe, what is it? Is it, I don't know what it is. The fact that it's black and it's square and it has 4 portions and it has to be strapped on your forehead and your hairline and it goes on your arm next to your heart and it has all the details made of leather and black ink and all this stuff was given to Moshe Rabbeinu on Sinai in oral law. Hashem told Moshe, here is what I want done. When I said tefillin, here's what I meant. So we don't know what God wants until we learn the Torah, the oral law. Same thing with Jewish law, halacha. What's halacha? Halacha is telling you, what does God want you to do? You go in the Chumash and you read, it should be as a sign upon your arm and a frontlets between your eyes. Now what? Or, take for an example, Yom Kippur. You shall pain yourself on this day. What does that mean? Look at your tax bill? I mean, how do you pain yourself? So what Torah says in the oral law, it means don't eat and don't drink and don't bathe, etc., etc. So we have all the oral law is what's called Gili Haratzon, tells us what does God want. So in other words, what's the oral law? The window or the vehicle, how we find out what does God want from us. That's what he says here. It is the revelation of God's will. Why? Because even though, and here's a very famous line, even though the Torah comes from God's wisdom, even though we know Torah emerges from God's wisdom, that's not where it starts. And here's a fascinating insight into Torah that I want to take a few minutes to talk about. What does it mean that Torah comes from wisdom, but it comes from a higher place called desire or will, God's wanting? So first of all, let's talk about where wisdom and where Ratzon is on the totem pole. As you know, we have Chachma, Bina, Das, Chesed, Gevur, Tiferes. Chachma is the beginning of all this very start, where from the soul into our mind, or from God's essence into the process of creation, begins process is Chachma. Chachma is the first stage. But there's something above Chachma that's called Ratzon. You see, in above Chachma, you have 2 things, or it's really one thing, which is called Keser, the crown. But in the crown, there are 2 parts, something called Atik, the inside of the crown, and Arich, the outside of the crown. These 2 things are called Tainug and Ratzon, pleasure and desire. Pleasure doesn't mean just regular pleasure, like having your back scratched. It means a deep, profound pleasure you have in seeing something you worked on, the success of a lifelong work, the deep, profound inner experience of joy. It's much better than just a good coffee. Ratzon is the same thing. Ratzon is vision or power, what I want, what I really long for. There are certain things I really want. I really want, the example I used in the past is somebody has a desire one day to move to Israel. Somebody has a desire, I always wanted to experience a certain thing. Those are called Ratzon. I want something. I want it deeply. Not just like today, I want to have, I want to go for a walk, or I want to take a whatever. So Ratzon, these are things above wisdom. So where does Torah come from? It says Torah, which means Torah, mechachma nafkes, comes out of Torah, comes out of wisdom. And I was saying that the Araisa, really the Torah comes from Ratzon, which is a higher place. So does it come from wisdom, or does it come from Ratzon? Does it God's will, which is above logic, above Chachma? But to understand it, we can take a moment and focus on one of the most beautiful passages in the Haggadah. A very beautiful passage, because Pesach is only just 54 days away. I mean, who's counting? But it's coming out pretty soon. My pleasure. It's actually, I think, 55 days, but who's counting? All right. So Pesach's coming up. And one of the beautiful lines in the Haggadah is we have the son, the wise son, the 4 sons. And the wise son says, what's all these laws that we have? And we tell him, okay, after the Afikomen, don't taste anything. Like, what's the question? What's the answer? And the question he asks is, why do you have chukim and mishpatim and edus? 3 different types of things. And we know the chukim are laws that have no logic to it, like don't mix wool and linen. or the red heifer, or eat kosher. Things that, I mean, people can say whatever they want, the reason is, but the bottom line is there's no logic to the mitzvah. God said so. Eidos are mitzvahs that have a logic, but only once you know the logic. For an example, eat matzah, because it reminds you of the Exodus. Oh, okay, I see it has some beautiful symbolism. Mishpatim are laws that are obvious. Don't kill, don't steal, don't mitzvah to respect our parents. Logical, obvious things that make sense. You know, these are, no one has to tell us this. They're obvious. They're civil laws that even without a Torah, we think of, or we could learn them also from animals, it says. We can learn from different animals how to function. So the Chacham is asking, what does God want from us? Is religion a dogma? Is religion supposed to be understood? Make up your mind. Are we supposed to understand the mitzvahs? Is there a reason? Or there's no reason? Which way should we do mitzvahs? I mean, some mitzvahs we do blindly. God says do it. Some mitzvahs, it's a profound meaning. Some are symbolism. What's the bottom line? What's the Chacham ask? How do we function as a Jew? Are mitzvahs supposed to be something we do with just like a servant or slave following God's will? Or should we do it as a person that's given insight? Let me explain to you why you should do this. And the answer is, don't eat anything after the Afikoman. How was that the answer? The answer is like this. We have a very strange law. On one hand, it says, the Afikoman, which, by the way, today we all think of it as a piece of matzah, but Mashiach will come, God willing, this year we'll have it as a big piece of lamb. It's a good piece of lamb with some maror, and the matzah will be not hard like today, but will be like a lava, soft, like a pita wrapped around. Will be a good, good piece of lamb. Actually, probably tomorrow's gonna make it for us. A really good lamb. So, in Yerushalayim, amen. So the bottom line is, the mitzvah was you have to eat it when you're full. That means eat a meal, have some chicken soup, have some potatoes, have some other stuff, and then when you feel full, now go and eat the afikoman, this big chunk of meat, this big main course. And not only that, God says, and after you're done eating it, don't eat anything so the flavor should linger all night. So we have a question there. God, I don't understand. You want us to enjoy it? We should eat it when we're hungry. At least not starving. Like we have a salad first, but we should eat it you're telling us to eat it when we're full. It's not enjoyable to eat when you're full. If I'm already full, now someone brings out the main course, I could be kind and take a bite for you, and I'm not even going to enjoy it. So if I'm eating it when I'm full, I want to enjoy it. And then you say, but let the flavor linger all night. That grilled, it's like a barbecued lamb. So perfect. Let it linger all night in your mouth. You want me to enjoy it or I shouldn't enjoy it? Make up your mind. And the answer is, God saying like this. I want you to do the mitzvah because I said so. No other motivation. Why you're doing it? Not because you're hungry. You're doing it because I said so. But once you're eating it, I want you to enjoy it and appreciate it and learn about it and let the flavor linger. And that's what we tell the Chacham. You know what Yiddishkeit is? There has to be the aspect of a mitzvah that makes no sense, and you do it because God said so. But once you're doing it, study, understand, relate to it, engage it, become one with it, and then let the experience linger. Enjoy it. You sing a niggun, shri with a geschmack. That's not the story. Now, why am I telling you that whole thing now? Because really, all mitzvahs, according to Chassidus, start off with no reason at all. The truth is, every mitzvah has a journey how it comes down. In its earliest form, when it comes from God, there's no reason why you shouldn't steal, there's no reason why you shouldn't kill, no reason why you should eat matzah, no reason why you should do this, and no reason why you can't mix with linen and a bull. That's what I want. Why? I want a red car. I like the top of the chicken, I like the bottom of the chicken. Why? That's what I want. But as it comes down to this world, sometimes a mitzvah, in the process, it attaches itself to a reason. A reason it's clumped onto it, a symbolism, a meaning. So now when it comes down here, some mitzvahs end up getting here in its purest form with no reason. Some mitzvahs get here with some attachment, some get here with a reason. But the truth is the reasons came later. The reasons came later. That's a real thing. As a matter of fact, when you do a mitzvah, if you think the reason why we shouldn't kill is because it's unlawful and unethical and immoral, you're missing out the whole thing. If that were the case, euthanasia would be a great thing. Because someone's getting old, you're 114 years old, and they have stage 4 cancer, God forbid, and they're in pain, do a mitzvah, put them out of their misery. But God didn't say don't kill because we're merciful. God said don't kill because it feels good because you have a reason. Yummy, you have a reason for it. But that's not the reason. In other words, Torah comes from God's Ratzon. Torah is not chachma. Torah is not wisdom that you can say, wow, it makes sense. Because sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it has logic. Sometimes the system. Like God tells us in the Torah, if you think the reason that I made the law of sending away the mother bird before you take the eggs is an act of mercy, you're like a heretic. You're missing the whole point. The reason why God said to send away the mother bird is because God said to send away the mother bird. Nothing to do with the mercy on the chicks. As a matter of fact, we know for mercy on the mother bird. We know The law is only if you chance upon it. What's if you have it in your chicken coop? You don't have to send away the mother bird and take the eggs. Take the eggs. Why? Where's the kindness? Every day he worked so hard for the egg the whole day. Finally he produces an egg. Even there we got to be careful. She produces an egg, and now you're taking it away because no mitzvah not to. In other words, we have to know Torah comes miratzon. That's what we're saying here. But Torah Shabbat Peh, that is the way you can see the purest truth of Torah. In Torah Shabbat Ksav, written Torah, you can't see God's ratzon. You can't see what God wants. In Torah Shabbat Peh, yes, we have discussions, the logic of it, but you get to see what was God's will. What did God want? He wanted us to have square tefillin, not round tefillin. He wanted Shabbos council to be lit before it gets dark, not after it gets dark. Everything he wanted challah to be taken only with this measurement of dough. Why? Because that's what God wanted. And the fact that we have logic and reasons is fine. Now that we know this perspective, what the ratzon is and what Torah is, let's go see it one more time inside. Let's go back one line. Shehi, it's the third line, third word. Hey, I like that. Shehi bechinis golui ratzon elyon, because the Torah Shabbat Peh is the revelation of God's higher supernal will, because even though Torah is coming from Chachma, meaning Torah is the wisdom, it is your wisdom, it is the knowledge, it is the brilliance of God. But the truth is its source, the sharsha and its root, it's much, much higher. It's in Keser. It's higher than Chachma, it's in Keser. It comes from the place of Ratzon Elyon, God's supernal will, which is much higher. That means when we learn Torah Shabbat Peh, we're tapping into God's will in the deepest, deepest way. Like it says in Tehillim, Katsina literally means a shield. And the shield we're talking about here usually is in the war, they used to go three-sided shields. When they went to battle, sometimes you see them as curved shields. By some of the Greeks, I don't know who they were. Sometimes you see it as a square shield in the old pictures, but it was three-sided. And that's how they went to war. But it didn't protect their head and didn't protect their back. They had to wear a helmet for their head, and they had to wear it from the back to hope nobody was going to get them. Hopefully your teammate's not going to get you. But that was how they went to war with these katsina, these type of shields. Katsina ratzon taterenu, it is like the will, the kesed, this desire, the Hashem's desire, it protects us taterenu, like on our head, meaning like a shield, like a helmet. The protection of God's will, David HaMelech is saying, protects us ka'atara, over our Torah is something that goes over your head. Torah is like a crown, or like what's the other word they use for it? The crown, but another word for it, a very beautiful word. It's like the Torah, which goes on the brain, the mind of the head. So what protects the head? The ratzon. Meaning, while the moichin, the chachma is the concept, but the true protection comes from the ratzon. That's Torah Shabbat Peh. Like we know what it says, and like it says, the wife is the crown of her husband. What does that mean? So simply it means we sing it every Friday night. We talk about this great quality of a woman, but the truth is, the man and the woman are the metaphors for the Torah Shabbat, the written Torah, and Torah Shabbat Peh. The oral law is called the wife or the woman. The written law is called the husband, the man. Why is that? On a simple level, we know the process of creation. We go all the time about this. And Chachma and Bina. Chachma is a small dot, like the husband gives a small little seed. And Bina, the wife, takes that and expands it into a giant creation called the baby, the child. Same thing, Torah Shabbat is written in a single word, one word. And you have on that word volumes and volumes of Mishnah, Talmud, commentary, Rishonim, Acharonim. So you have the idea that the little seed, the little word, the Mishnah, the Chumash, the male develops into a giant female production. But also, we know that in general, in feminine and masculine, we use it as the giver and the receiver. Even though we know that at the end of the day, the receiver gives back to the giver more than the giver gave, as explained in Chassidus, and it's another whole discussion. But at the technical term right here, the giver is the source, is the Torah Shabbat. That feeds in and is commented and explained by the Torah Shabbat Peh. So the male, the masculine aspect of Torah is the Chumash. The female aspect is the Talmud and the Mishnah. That's what we say, Eishes Chayil, the Talmud is the crown of her husband of the Chumash, meaning appreciate the depth and the beauty of Torah Shabbat is only with Torah Shabbat Peh. And this is the deeper interpretation of the statement, Eishes Chayil Ateres Baila, that the Talmud is the crown of the Chumash. And then it says, The kol lashon halachas b'chol yom chulu. We say muftach lo yeshiv in olam haba. That anybody who studies the halachas every day is guaranteed to go to olam haba. In other words, that is your safety belt. That's your parachute. That's your strength. That's that belt. But we started off this chapter saying that the key is the hips of a person, the loins, that keeps your faith has to be strong. What keeps your faith strong? That's the study of Torah. Which part of Torah? This is why the Alter Rebbe said this letter was written in 1789. In 1788, he said, I wrote to you a letter last year telling everyone to study the Talmud every year. Now he's explaining to you why you have to study the Talmud. And we can understand why the Rebbe said to study the Rambam. Because this is the way we keep our faith strong. When you have a support of the oral law, this keeps our support of the support of our faith very strong. And that's what it means that she binds or she girds her loins with strength. In Eiz el Torah, we know Eiz refers to Torah. She nesens kayach ve'eiz lebchinas mesnayim, because that's what gives strength and power to the hips, to the loins. Hachagurim, which are bound umulubashim and dressed with it. Lachazik ula'amid zreisah. That gives the strength to the arms. As we said before, the job of the loins is, and I looked this up, I told you last time, I looked it up on Google to understand what loins do. Loins is the core of your body that gives strength both to your posture, to your neck, to your head, to your arms, and your legs. You have to have a strong core for all the function, and that's what he says here. When your core is strong, when your loins are strong, then your arms are strong. What's the arms? Your love and your fear of God. So how do you ensure that you have a strong, it's like a step-by-step. You have to eat, to be healthy, exercise, but at the end of the day, to have a healthy, functioning person. I mean, not exercising just to pass the time. You exercise to have a strong body. Strong body is not just to have a strong body, because you want to be a functioning friend, person, husband, wife, whatever you are. There's a purpose. What's the end game? The end game is being the best you can be with the healthiest body and with the best strength. The end game here is to strengthen our love and fear of God, and that is done through the strength of the loins that are supported by the study of Torah. And it says, and then he said again, as you mentioned, that there's two types of ways that a person could have a love and fear of God. One is the natural, and one is the developed. Natural means I tap into my inner self. My true identity is I love God and I fear God. I just have to uncover it. This is my truth. No different than a child loves the parent despite the fact that they're angry. You know what? Get back to your natural love. Sometimes you can create a stronger love by you thinking about and you appreciate a person in your life, and you think about something over and over, and you realize, you know what? This person's been amazing to me. This person has given themselves to me. This person is, and you can start loving the person and respect or having awe of the person, not fear like scared of, but fear like awe, like you have a respect. Like, whoa, like I wouldn't call a person by the first name. I call them Rabbi or Rebbitzin, or I say Mrs. I don't say, just hey, Jake. It's because I have an awe for them. That could come also developed by thinking about things, which is one of the great things about the mind. We said at the very beginning, the head, the sabinus. If someone has a proper method of thinking, they can develop the most beautiful feelings of love and fear to Hashem and to what's important. Because in our mind, these things take a value. A person thinks, we said at the very beginning of this whole letter, it's page ago, and if a person thinks, now in Olam Haba, in the world to come, all you have is a small ray, an aura of godliness. When we do a mitzvah, we connect to the essence of godliness. That itself should make you excited to do a mitzvah. So what does that mean? If I think about this for a few minutes every day, before I daven chakras, before I start my day, I think, you know what? They have in the heavens so many beautiful things and great things. That is nothing compared to the power of one mitzvah, one good deed that I do. I light the Shabbos candle. I bring someone a challah for Shabbos. I make them smile. That counts 1,000 times more than what they're having in the world to come. That itself should motivate you, and that should make you excited. So your fear or your love or your feelings are developed by what you think about. And everyone on their level. Doesn't mean that we're all going to do it the same. We all have different functions, different levels, how we think, how we respond. We had in the Tanya in the beginning of this, we're still in the middle of chapter 29 in Tanya, the daily Tanya that we're learning. It started off the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says, don't judge someone else. For all you know, that person has more passion automatically, and therefore when they're going to work or they see things, they see delicious, restaurant they pass every day. They can't help themselves. They go one day and buy themselves something that's not kosher. You sit at home the whole day, and your wife makes you supper. You don't go out to the restaurants every day, so you can't measure. Also, every person has different situations, and you can't compare. So you don't compare against someone else It's in your own journey. Everybody on their level serves God with the right fear, the right love, etc. And then he finishes off this section here. And regarding the support, and we said in the beginning of this section today, we said in the beginning of today's reading, we said the support and the holding up of the head, which is the intellect, the thinker, the meditator. It comes from faith. He explains there, its support comes from faith. So how does one support that your intellect should be healthy and good? You have to have faith. So everything is built up like in a set, all programmed, no difference than you make any meal that you first give the salad and the soup and then the main course. There's a way everything's built up, how that right function. All of this is a lead up to the next few lines, which is the point of the rest of this chapter. The rest of this letter that the Alter Rebbe is writing, remember, this letter is being written in 1789 to the Chassidim about a follow-up to the year before he wrote a letter saying, I'd like everyone to daven, in a certain way, meaning don't talk during davening, nobody should, and people should study the Talmud every year. All the instructions that he sent out to all his communities in the late 1700s. Now you see, again, what's unique about this, we're turning over now, we're going to start saying the rest of this chapter, is he actually turns to us and starts talking, which is phenomenal. Because we know the Tanya was written in place of the personal encounters with the Alter Rebbe. Here is one of those moments where he turns to us and he talks to us like, as we'll see here, and we'll see the next paragraph, this beautiful personal conversation with the Alter Rebbe. And again, this is maybe 270 years ago, but it's as personal, as meaningful as ever to us right now. When is the best time? It got to be certain times are the best times to strengthen this function of our mind and our hearts and our faith to have love and fear of God. Where is the key time of the day? He's going to say it's Shacharis in the morning. Davening Shacharis is the everything. Hishas Tfilas HaShachar. It is the time of davening Shacharis. And what's interesting, we'll see in a moment, he says the word Shas. He doesn't say it's davening Shacharis. He says the time of davening Shacharis. The morning, and is explained in Kabbalah, which I can't tell to you because I don't understand it enough, about the upper spheres have something called Levin Elyon, the great whiteness. In general, white is the color of kindness, like snow shelling is kindness. There's a whole idea that spiritually in the heavens, the mornings are the time of a white before God, and this whiteness trickles down to our world. Mornings are a time of absolute connection to God. Separate from the fact that davening is powerful, davening in the morning, in the right time, is an extremely powerful experience, not just because of davening, because the window that's open every day. Every day when you wake up, and this first, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't learn Chassidus first. It means don't go to the office first, then daven. Don't go. Sometimes you don't have a choice. You're on a trip, and the flight takes up at 5 a.m. You don't have a choice. But in general, always use the morning first things to focus on God, because the mornings are a special time above. That the small, just like Rosh Hashanah is a special time that the smallest action could elicit tremendous results. Shacharis time, the smallest little turn to God, the reciprocation and the possibilities are incredible during that window of morning when you start your day. Yes. Tirkat is a different type of window. That's a window of remorse and to sort of, we talk about the destruction of the temple then. But again, the funny part is, you always find from the Rebbe that every yontif is the most important yontif, and every number is the best number. 10, 3, 7, 13, 14. Every number is like the most amazing number. 30. It depends what we're talking about. Number 11. So every number you're gonna find. So here, what it says the best time. You're gonna find also elsewhere it says mincha, the best time of the Eis Ratzon. That's why Shabbos is called the time of Ratzon. Mincha is called the time of Ratzon. Shabbos mincha is called the Ivan, the most opportune time, which is why, by the way, Chabad doesn't have a Shal Shuddis. We instead sing the Gunim. In a structured community, they don't, like yeshivas, they don't have a meal like most people. We actually sit down and sing the Gunim, and someone says a mimer, a Chassidic discourse. Why? How could you, this moment here, you're just going to sit and eat, is such a special moment. So every moment is special. Night time before you go to bed, the best time. Wake up, the best time. But basically, what they say, so I think somebody once asked the Rebbitzin, which is the most important day of the year. I think she said today. Whatever you have today is the most important day. But right now he's explaining the quality and the mila of davening and Shacharis time. Therefore, he says, Ola Zeis. And therefore, Oisa Vakesh, this is what I'm asking. This is what the Alter Rebbe is telling to us. I'm asking you a favor. Mevakshe Hashem, from those who search out God. You want to have a relationship with God. You want to be connected to the Almighty. You want to have something real going on in your life. Yavinu v'yaskilu yachdav. Let them think and meditate together. Liyais l'zikare beineim, to be reminded between your eyes. That means in your brain. It's a code, like it says in the Torah, where it says it should be between your eyes. Doesn't mean here. It means on your mind. It means keep it on your mind. Kol masha kasafti aleihim eshtaqid b'chlal. Think about what I wrote to you last year, 1788. I wrote you this letter. And I asked you, as the words are in the last page of Tanya, that's that letter. I'm asking you, and especially when you're davening, say it with feeling, say it with focus. Don't just say the words with feeling from the depth of your heart. Every single day you should search out and seek out God. The Kolibam with all your heart, meaning not to be in two places. Your phone should not be on vibrate. Your phone should not be there. Your distractions, you should not be, and that's why we have Chabad customs to have a coffee and a cake before we daven. You should be thinking about food in your daven. If you didn't eat yet, you're in daven, you're thinking, I can't get a little hungry. You're hungry for the morning, have a coffee and a cake. Okay, done. Now do everything. Now sit down and daven. Be there 100% in the moment. With all your heart and with all your soul. And you should pour out your heart like water pours, just spills out, nothing holds it back. Towards the faith, meaning facing God. Ad mitzi hanefesh, go to the last drop of your strength. Meaning, ad mitzi hanefesh means till the end. Don't hold back. Davening should be a no holds back sort of experience, 100%. Okay. From here, bottom line is, this is, I think, one of these special letters to read. And I have found a very interesting experience that every year when we get to certain letters in the Iggeres Hakodesh and certain letters in also certain essays, it impacts me for a certain amount of time. Like, since I read this today, and actually a couple of days of hearing, but since I read this today, I know that tomorrow morning I'll probably daven better than I davened yesterday. And the question is, how long it'll last for? 2 days, 1 day, half an hour, 20 minutes. But the key is to keep going back over and over. That's why he says, think about this a lot. He didn't just say read it. He said, think about it and meditate upon it. Because when someone thinks about something, I'll give you an example. There are people who know that cigarette is really bad for you. But until you experience, God forbid, a tragic situation, or till one day you take the time to say, you know what? Let me actually think. There's a woman who used to be part of our social, she moved to Chicago. She was a pulmonologist. And she offered me to come to the Hebrew school and to give a talk on smoking. And she would show pictures of the lungs of a smoker and lungs of a non-smoker, and show all different statistics and children that are the defects and things. So, I mean, the point was, if someone truly doesn't just hear that smoking is bad for you, but you picture it and you know it's a whole different experience, or you do something and you see the experience, if someone doesn't know the damage that's done when you criticize a child. But if someone to look at a study, how children function and develop when they're being constantly criticized versus constantly encouraged, it's not just hearing about it. Suddenly, how can you criticize a child? Somebody once wrote to the Rebbe, I know who this was actually, but he told a story about him. But he said, if I bring him, he said that he had a problem. Now he has great-grandchildren, so he's an older person. He said he had a problem when he was younger, as a young parent, in his 30s, I don't know what age it was, he would spank his kids. And he always bothered him, why I spank my kids? But he did it because he felt there was discipline. And it bothered him. So the Rebbe told him, if you would think to yourself in the morning that these aren't your children, these are God's children, that he entrusted you to watch them for him. Who gives you a right to smack God's kids? Think about that, and you'll have trouble hitting them. In other words, everything needs a meditation. If you think about something, it changes before. The Alter Rebbe says, don't just go daven. Think about the davening beforehand, and you'll see it will be a different experience. And may God bless and protect our people in Israel, the soldiers, those who were God protect them, taken as captives. May Hashem truly have mercy and show the world the miracles.